There we go. Welcome, friends. Here we are for another Nomadic Network event. Feel free, you can turn on your cameras. We are so happy you're here today. I'm going to let everybody kind of hop in for a second, and then I'm going to go through a few housekeeping items, and then I'm going to turn it over to Kevin. I'm really looking forward to this presentation. Pretty sure most of us have dreams of moving to Europe at some point, especially in the current situation. So yes, I'm very excited about this, and let's see what we get up to. So I'm going to go ahead and share my slides for just a minute, and then we're going to hand it over to Kevin, and this is going to be great. I'm going to admit. Bear with me, folks. I am doing multiple things at once. It's fine. Okay, so here we are. Another Nomadic Network event and a little bit about TNN. This is a community of travelers inspiring each other to see the world. It was originally founded by Nomadic Matt, and now it is owned and run by Lisa Field for more than a year now. I cannot believe that it's been just over a year since we relaunched, and how fun this has been. So TNN, we have hosted more than 250 virtual events. You can find all the latest and greatest information on the website at thenomadicnetwork.com. All of our 2026 tour dates are live. We have a tour, actually our Peru tour starts today, and then Morocco is in just a few weeks. And 2026 is going to be pretty epic. So if you're looking for an adventure, go check out the website. We have our community tours, and yep, Peru and Morocco are our last two for this year. And then up first for 26 is Mexico City. So, okay, where to connect with us? So Instagram, you can find us at the Nomadic Network. We do have a YouTube channel where all of these replays get posted, so you can revisit these anytime you want, get new information. You don't have to take notes. I will send out the replay for you tomorrow. You can register for more virtual events. We still have a couple happy hours left for the year, and we have one more presentation next month. And then, if you can believe it, that is literally the end of 2025. Insane. And then, of course, you can travel with us. So, few housekeeping items that I did not unshare that slide. That's fine. So we love to see your faces. If you would please turn on your cameras, that would be great. You don't need to, of course. Perfect. Thanks, Carolyn. And so all of our presenters do this on a volunteer basis out of the goodness of their hearts, so they can share information with you to help you travel better and save money, relocate, whatever the thing is that you want to do in the world. That's what we bring them here for. So we do encourage you to please follow them, engage with them, give them some love online, ask your questions. So as we go along, if you have a question, you can put it in the chat. I will keep track of those. And then at the end, we will have some time for Q&A. So before I hand it over, let me introduce you to Kevin. So Kevin relocated to Germany from Seattle 3.5 years ago, and now resides in Malta as a digital nomad visa holder. I cannot wait to hear all the things. So he leads Immigrant Spirit, which has been helping people get jobs in Europe, typically in Germany, but from all over the world for the last 12 years. Kevin was a client of the placement program titled Expats Job Miracle in 2021, had 2 remote jobs in Germany before taking over as director of the program. So Kevin knows what he's talking about. And so I'm going to hand it over to you.
All right, thanks a lot, Annie. That was a great intro. Yeah, I think you hit all the points from what I wrote. So, yeah, it's great to learn about this community, and I was interested when I first found it. And it seems like you're doing some good stuff. Like it would be interesting going to a new country, doing some sort of either on a partner trip or a solo trip or whatever, doing one of these tours that you guys do. So I'm interested as well in doing something like that. So just before we get started, because I know with these sorts of things, and I also go to presentations as well, different webinars from other creators, it can be boring sometimes to just go through slides. So I did want to change it up a little bit before we get into a slideshow presentation. I want to know really what's most important for you guys because there's a lot of different angles that we can come at this, a lot of different ways that you can start, because it's a big topic. And so the first thing, the way to direct this, I think, would be when you think about getting a job in Europe, because that's what you want, this is probably why you're here. What is the first thing that goes through your head? First thing that comes up? If anyone wants to either put in the chat or unmute, and then we can get an idea of what is most important.
I'll say that for me, the first thing that comes up is paperwork. Like what's all the, the visas and the paperwork, and that would be feels like the most daunting.
Sure. Yeah, and language, someone said language barrier. Paperwork for sure, like somewhere for like Germany is there's a lot of paperwork and bureaucracy that comes with simply just trying to get a job offer and moving. So there's a lot more to it. As far as the language barrier, I mean, this is the most obvious thing. So this is actually a great place that we can start. I'll show what I had in mind about this because this is the really the first thing in my opinion as well. When I first moved, I remember when I was sitting in that place as well, just almost 4 years ago now, trying to figure out where in Europe I wanted to start my new career. And the first big question is which countries offer English speaking jobs relatively? And so that's a big filter that we can use because there's a lot of countries in Europe. The European Union is a big union, and if you're thinking about Europe overall, it's even bigger. Now, we don't consider UK because they're not in the EU, and obviously they speak English. But mainly today, we're going to be focusing on European Union options. So I'll show you what I have in mind for this. As far as when we're thinking about that first filter of where actually offers English speaking jobs. Okay, so I'll just jump to that part. So it's critical to understand. It might be basic, but not, coming from the US, a little bit of background, because I understand about 55% of this of your audience, Annie, is from the US. And since I'm as well, I understand that you don't really need another language growing up. You don't interact very often with other, like in your daily life, you don't need very often to switch to a different language. There are times, yes, but not regularly. So when you go to Europe, you'll realize, of course, outside of the UK, it's a bit different. There's a lot of, people here. It's a travel network, so you've probably been to a lot of countries, but you would think sometimes that there's more, but there's really not a lot of English speaking jobs. So when you look at the countries actually that relatively offer more, you're talking about places like Ireland, which does have an official English as their official language. And then you have other countries where it's the same, like Malta, which is where I'm living now. And then places like Netherlands, which is just very open in general. So they do have a lot of English speaking jobs, tech companies that will sponsor you. And they have very good high English fluency as well as Sweden. And then you have Germany, which is there as well. And it's in the top five, but it has just under 4% right now of total jobs that are in English. So that gives you the scale of what we're talking about here. So when you want to look after the why, the next question is after you've figured out your why and why you want to move to Europe, because that should be solid, then you want to figure out, okay, where is feasible and where is relatively, a place that you can go and find job offers. So that's the big first question, because once you get a job in Europe, that first job, everything else becomes easier from there. If you qualify for a blue card, then you will be able to work in many different European countries. You're already qualified. So when you get that first invite to work in Europe, that's the most important. And then after that, it frees you up a lot to be flexible and move around. So I like that we started there because I agree that's where I started as well when I was first thinking about it. Is where is realistic. So I just want to set a little bit of context as well, and then I'll talk about a few other aspects that are key to think about. So this is the when you're thinking about getting a job in Europe or anywhere, there's a lot of I mean, I see it as well right now in the US. It's extremely hard. It's so congested, and there's a lot of different factors that are contributing to that. We'll talk about those in a bit. But these are all quotes that I've heard from people directly, either on email, on LinkedIn, et cetera, people that I've worked with. And so this should just show it's if you've been saying something like this, I don't know how far people are. We'll talk at the end how far you guys are at in your search and your approach. But I mean, I've been speaking with people, they apply for 500, 600 jobs and they don't get invited for an interview and they're already in Europe. So let alone if you're coming from another country, it's you hear this a lot. So it's not uncommon. And this over here just gives you an idea. I just took a screenshot the other day on LinkedIn. 7 hours, 98 applicants. That's for a remote job in Spain. So for this community, I would assume something like that would be interesting. You get to travel, you get to live in sunny Spain, and all is hunky dory. But if you apply, you're in high competition because a lot of people want that. So, and you have this easy apply button, which I'm going to get into in a second, but it's it's not really easy when you apply that way because it's just as easy for your competition. So, and it's also just as easy for you to get rejected. It makes it a lot easier to evaluate your candidacy and throw you out. There's a couple of filters that are key on LinkedIn in how you answer them, or if you answer one way, you're basically automatically rejected. And that's what you see a lot of the times when you easy apply, and it's very simple. You do it at lunch when you're bored or you're just looking around at something better. If you would think that it would be productive to do a lot of easy applies, but it's really not. And I'll go into that in a little bit. This is an image. I think this portrays well the scene about what's happening. So this is you as the job seeker applying in this type of job. You wait. In the back is the people that you really want to communicate with, but you're guarded from those people by HR and recruitment, and they play a little bit of a different role than most people think. We're all here for various reasons. When I was thinking about it, these are from what I hear and when I was thinking about moving and living in Europe, these were the main things that I thought of. There's probably some other reasons that people are here. Feel free to put in the chat because it would also be nice to have some conversation at the end in the Q&A or even afterwards. Feel free to reach out to me. I'm always happy to chat on just a conversational level about what's going on and why. But these are, in my opinion, the most important reasons. So the most common. If these are one of the reasons for you, you're in the right place. We'll talk about a few of these things as much as we can in the time that we have together. The next question that I like to ask is, which type of company do you want to work at? So if you want to get sponsored and you want to get a job in Europe, a company will help you go through all the steps. That's the ideal. Is so you get a job offer before you move, you have a company help you through all the steps. That's what happened with me. That's what I do for my clients. If you get a company to help you, everything from scheduling a visa appointment, arranging your travel so you don't have to pay for your flights, paying for your move, like your moving costs and finding an apartment, all that. So, I mean, that's the best thing that you want to do. We're not talking quite yet about entrepreneurship, digital nomad visas, but if you want to land a job in Europe with a company, there's really two styles of companies that will sponsor internationals. So you've got large international companies. A place like Ireland, you look at the American tech bases they have there, it's basically everyone has their European base in Ireland because of how the taxes work. So there's probably a lot of people here that work for this type of company. I don't know how. I can't see everyone in the full gallery view, but I would assume without doing a full hand raising exercise here, I would assume that at least a few people here work for a multinational company. And then the question is, can you transfer internally? That's one thing to figure out because there could be a European base that your company has, or which type of company could you look at easily transferring into? That's also a blue chip large company because they know the processes. They've done it a lot for people. So this is going to be essentially your best bet. As a tech startup company as well, you have globally minded companies that are just trying to make it. They're just trying to increase their operations. They're not so concerned necessarily about focusing on one market. So like logistics companies, for example, they're going to be working in English because you need to communicate with all the different markets somehow. And then English is the global language. Everything else is basically a regional. I mean, you have, aside from Spanish is also a global language. And and German, which is one of the more spoken languages, it's still considered a regional language because there's about 5 countries that speak it on a native level. Belgium is mixed with a few different ones. So there's I'll just share here if I can exit. I'm not sure if I can get out of this part, but I don't, it's not necessary. Annie, I'm hitting ESC, but it's not going back. Do I need to stop the share and then reshare it?
Possibly.
Okay. It's all right. As it looks like how much time? We're about 20 minutes.
Yeah, you've got time.
Okay. All right. I'll just do this then because I'll just show you there. It's more than I can cover in this time, but I'll just show people here. We do have a full blog post on our website about how to move to Europe as an American. We just did this recently. And you can go read this, and it's got much more information than I can share in this call. So I just wanted to share with you guys that you can go read that as well. I'll go back to where I was. Go back to the other screen. Bear with me. There we go. Oops. Okay. All right. So the next, speaking of types of companies as well, also on the website, and I just want to say at the end, I'm going to help you guys out with something. I'll give you the list. Yeah, it either is in the chat already from Annie. I'm not sure. I can't see the chat, but it also will come in the follow-up email. I have a list of 100 companies that have European offices that are hiring. That there's at least 100 in there that are hiring. There's more than 100 companies in there. And you can go to their jobs page. It either has their career page from their website or it has their LinkedIn page. And you can, find new ideas there. You can filter it by industry. So I'll give that to you guys at the end, just a heads up. Just another image about setting the scene again, the context and why it's so difficult. We talked about the occurrence that we see, like the number of people that are applying and clogging it up. If you look at like with what LinkedIn says is actually it's the number of people that have clicked applied. So you don't fully know how many people are actually applying, but I hear it from hiring managers. It's way, way more recently than normal. And so what happens is when you have AI generated resumes, cover letters, et cetera, you go in here with 100 other people. This is the first screening system. There's a study that said 75% of companies are using AI now on their screenings. So you have that to battle at the start. Also, if you do have a human review it, you have a recruiter, and recruiter spends on average 7 seconds on a CV before they figure out if they want to move you forward or if they want to say no. That's what The Economist published last year. So you see, you have a super hard battle that if you don't know really how it works, because we're all trying to figure out how AI is working, we're trying to figure it out on the fly, how to best handle it. It's super hard to figure out how to beat this, this system here, if you don't really know how it works. So I'm going to ask you at the end of this to pick a better battle and a better thing to focus on that is more tangible, that you actually understand, which is talking with a real person rather than trying to figure out how to beat it, the system. Because if you are the 1% that goes through here to an interview, a lot of times it's the person who understands best how to beat the screening system, how to answer the questions, and how to position their application in a certain way to get through, not because they're the best fit for the job. So a lot of times people who are the best, most qualified candidate, which it could be you don't get through for an interview because you didn't actually understand how to get through the first few filters. The Atlantic has a great article that relates to this, by the way. And that also I can send in the chat in the Q&A. But it's talking about what Bumble and Hinge did to the dating market. Also, you see going on in the job market, because the swiping, figuring out, okay, is it slightly better? Is it not? There's something else I can just go quickly, easy apply to. This is this is flooding recruiting departments, and then they don't have any other way to interact with it. They don't have anything else to do other than to just simply use it back. So they have to use the screening systems to go through all the very computer generated things that are super easy. So you can get a resume, you can get a CV, cover letter within a few minutes, 10 minutes, and send it. And so when you have that scenario, you have companies that are obviously going to be overflowing with applicants. So they need to, in response, use the same way of denying you. So that's why I said earlier, easy application, easy denial. So you have that I thought this was a good quote, ending up in Tinderized job search hell. That's basically what we're going through. So I'll send that at the end. It's a good read. It's just a 1-page article that you can scroll down. And I talk with hiring managers all the time, because what I do with my clients is that we approach hiring managers. I talk to companies who are looking for talent. Just today, I was at a conference as well, talking to people looking to hire. And then I ask them, like, what's going on? What do you prefer, when you get candidates? And this is someone who is also, he went through Immigrant Spirit. He worked with our program, and then he got up to director level at QNX, which is a division of BlackBerry. So he's in Frankfurt. He's originally from Brazil. And so he says, it was COVID times, and he's doing that. He's going through swiping on CVs, and he's like, it's boring as hell. And there's no context, and it's no fun. But rather, when you have someone reach out to you and they have a very concise and confident message and they want to talk to you, and you ask a very low bar ask, now I'll show you how to do that at the end, you're already on a different level than 95% of the applicants who are just easy applying or going through the company portal. So this really sets you apart, and it's not just a fake AI generated message. It has to be a real, genuine, well-crafted message. And I mean, it would be interesting to know as well, if you want to put in the chat, if you're a hiring manager, how often do you get a good intro message from someone on LinkedIn or an email that makes you pay attention to that person? Or in comparison to how often do you get just coming through the um, normal funnel? I would be interested to talk about that at the end. How often do you actually get? Because I hear it from managers, surprisingly, they don't get it as often as you would think. So, and this is the image again. This is what happens. You have the guard of the company, because now I'll tell you the real role of a recruiter is to make sure that the least risky candidate gets pushed to the hiring manager, because these people, they also have a job to do and they have to consider their own position. And there's nothing wrong with being a recruiter in HR. It's just that your incentives are inherently lined up for, you have targets, you have to figure out how to have wins in your role. And the best thing that you can do from a hiring manager to a recruiter is that you say, you know what, I want you to present the most secure candidates, the least complicated candidates. So a lot of times when you go through this route, when you apply, when you send your application, unfortunately, you're battling this level right here that is it doesn't have the same incentive. The interests between you and the person that is first looking at your application are not necessarily aligned. And that's actually an issue. But in the back, you do have people that you're going to be working with on a day-to-day basis. They're working on the same projects that you would work on. They are the people that you're going to talk to every day on the job. The recruiter, you might not talk to very much. If it's a big company, you probably don't interact with them after you get the job. So the people are there. And like we just saw, a lot of times they're waiting for people to reach out, but people don't. So if you reach out to them, they have the ability to vouch for you. And if you can come with a referral, which most hires are coming from referral, that's basic. But in Germany, for example, it's 30 to 40% every year, and it's the highest. That's the highest hiring method. So if you want to get a referral, you have to talk to the people that have the power to have influence in your company that you want to go into. And you have to figure out a way to pick that battle that you actually understand. You understand how to talk to that person. And I help people do that if you don't. But it gives you a much better chance than going against the factors that we talked about earlier. So all this, it can be bleak, but here's what we do. I really implore you guys to try this. This should help you a lot. Once you have the why down and the what, like which country do you want to go to, then you spend some time, good quality time, figuring out who do you know in that country, who's your second, maybe even second and third degree connections that you can leverage, and how can you approach them, with a very low bar ask. So you can have a coffee chat with them and try to figure out either how to get a referral, or you figure out the best strategy from their perspective about how to get one interview. If you can get one interview, that makes everything else better. It's always the hardest thing, is getting through that first layer. So once you find that person, I have a couple of images about what you can do in practice. So we add them as a connection if you don't know them. If it's a third degree connection or a second, you mention the person that you're mutually connected with. You add a note, and this is an example of a short note that you can write. Very low bar ask. I have 2 short questions about one of the open roles for your company. Would you be open or opposed for a brief 5-minute phone call this week? Thanks in advance. This is the sort of message that I send with my clients every week. We get about 3 or 4 out of 10 on average responses. You can see how much of a higher rate, how much of a better chance that gives you, rather than people that apply to 100 or more jobs and they don't get any acceptances for interviews. So definitely try this. I mean, you need to continue to do it at scale, because then it's a matter of consistency and showing up every week and spending more time to find the right people and crafting the best messages that you can. But you get to a point where you're no longer waiting for an interview call from a recruiter. Rather, you're scheduling calls with hiring managers on your own. And this was like super revolutionary to me when I first did it, because I thought, how can I get an interview with someone if I didn't apply? If you arrange a call with someone and you have your questions that you ask them, what happens when someone asks you a question after 2 or 3 questions? Usually a normal person wants to ask a question back. Just, it's very awkward if you just sit there and take questions. So a lot of times then it turns into a back and forth, where then you have they're asking you about your experience. And when you reach out on LinkedIn, they can see your profile as well. So you have the person that you want, the influence that you're going to work with. You have them looking at your profile. You have them asking you questions. You haven't even applied yet. And then when you apply, you write your cover letter to that specific person that you talk to. Or if they even told you even better, okay, I know who the hiring manager is. I'm sorry, it's not me. This is, an example from one of my clients, how we write it. So you get to say, hey, I had an opportunity to chat with Chris. Okay, name drop of a manager. From our discussion, I understand the role. This role demands this. So you're referencing that you understand the goal of the position. You're also making it clear you understand the greatest challenge of the role. So these give you the framework or the questions, by the way, that you can ask people. And this framework of cover letter, I hear from managers all the time, is way different than what most people do. And it stands out for sure. You know why? Because only in the second paragraph or the third paragraph do you then mention what you do and why you're a good fit. Because first you need to get credibility that you actually understand what they're doing. If you don't show that you understand what they're doing as a mission or as a company, then you have no right to start talking about yourself. So most people just start talking about what they do and what they're good at and everything. And I mean, I can tell you as well, I get cover letters for Immigrant Spirit. And the first thing that you think about is, I don't really care, because there's people that do a lot of different things. And first, you need to talk about why it's relevant to your specific company, to that company that you're applying. So at the end is when then you can ask for a formal interview. So once again, you have the opportunity to say, hey, we had a conversation. It was really good. It just happened. I firmly understand what you're doing. I know what the challenges are going to be, and I know how probation is going to go, because I just talked to your colleague, or we just spoke. And I would like to take this into a formal interview. And this really increases your chances to get interviews when it's like this. If you have to whom it may concern, it also doesn't look good, because someone's reading that and I mean, if I see that, I'm thinking, I'm not to whom it may concern. How come they couldn't even do any bare minimum research to figure out what my name is? And the reason people do that is because they don't know who the manager is. So you don't know who to do it, write it to. So that's understandable. But if you do put in the effort and you arrange a way of figuring out who it is, and then you get the chance to name drop that person, whoa, that's really good. I talked for a while. I think I talked for quite a bit. I couldn't see any of the chat, so I would love to. I saw a notification. There was like a lot of chat. Looks like 23 people, or at least 23 messages. So would love to, depending on how we're doing with time, how we usually go. But Annie would love to, before I talk about the list that I can give people for today to leave you with, I'd be happy to go into some Q&A.
Great. I don't have too many. Sorry, I'm answering one of the questions in the chat real quick.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't have a ton of questions in the chat yet, but this is the part where folks, if you do have questions, you can unmute yourself or hop in and ask your questions.
I'm just jumping into the chat as well. Oh, someone put
I'm thinking about, if I could ask a question, I'm thinking about, this seems to be about getting a full-time job in Europe. Awesome.
right.
And one of the barriers is documentation, at least in the US, like, hey, can you help me get my visa to live and work here? But I'm wondering if it's worth like freelancing and finding if my goal is to get work, can I freelance in Europe first? Can I get papers another way? If that's worth the effort, or if it's just like a better path to go find full-time papered employment.
Yeah. I cut off there at the end, but I think I got the full understanding of what you were asking. There, if you do want to do freelancing and being self-employed, or maybe you're not self-employed, you're just doing freelancing. But if you do have a company formation, you can do one of these digital nomad programs. So Spain, Portugal, Malta, Netherlands. I mean, there's a number of different ones. Croatia. If you apply for it, it's relatively straightforward. You just need to get your documents together. It took me about 6 months. So you can do that. And then you get full residency. You can, even though you don't have someone necessarily do some paperwork for you, you need to pay for your flight and all that. But if you want to continue with that, then that's a great way of doing it. If you don't have your own company and you just want to be a freelancer, there's places like in Germany, for example, they have freelancer visa. So you can also be freelancer there and you don't need to be employed by someone. You would probably, if you apply when you're there, so there are certain countries that you can go to, since, I mean, you can go to any country basically in Europe as an American. If you're from the US, you can go to any country in Europe and you can be there for 90 days, visa free. And also no one really cares. So if you're already there, you can just apply for your freelancer visa. I would suggest go to the country that you want to go to, have your, work documents that are relevant. I can even, after this, if you want, just send me an email. I'll share you like a link depending on, I mean, which country would you be interested in? Nope.
It's sorry, still in the ideation phase,
Yeah.
so I'm not sure, but
Okay.
I love the offer and I love this insight. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, if we talk after this, it just depends on like which country, but we could figure out, I mean, I could just help you figure out like what site where you can figure out which documents you need. If it's Germany, for example, I know what you would need, and then you just need to apply, and you can do it in any of the European countries that you go to. You just need to arrange an appointment, and then you can make the application. And it shouldn't take too long, to be honest. I hope that was helpful.
Super helpful. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm curious because you mentioned that, I mean, it sounded like, just based on what you said, that did you start with freelancing and then move into a global position? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think that might be of interest. Tell us how this kind of worked for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I kind of did a various different things. So first, I got a job from Seattle. I had a company that sponsored me. That was great. I went through this program actually myself. So I did this whole Immigrant Spirit thing. So this is how I got a job. And then I got a job in Hamburg. And then I had one other full-time job. So I did have work permit. And then what happens is then if you want to be a freelancer, you just need to apply for freelancer visa. So they're depending on the country, they all have different requirements. But then I decided that I wanted to be a self-employed person and have an American style business, but operate in Europe because it's much simpler at the end of the day to have an LLC just with in general. So I figured out this was a good program for me, but there's a lot of different digital nomad programs, where you can have an American business. I know we didn't talk much about that, but I have a partner who, our collaborator, where she is more helping out with how to figure out where you would want to go for being a digital nomad. Today the topic is more about how to get a job. So in that case, I was able to land a couple jobs as well. So it just depends, if you want to do full-time work and work for a company, again, they're going to sponsor you. They're going to make everything easier. But if you want to do your own thing, then you just need to arrange everything yourself and figure out which program is best. And it's sort of that same way with freelancer.
Okay, that makes sense. We do have a question. So speaking of getting a job, the question is from Stacy. Are you planning to branch into the education sphere or know anyone who has expertise in that area? Places like international schools and so forth. Her PhD and experiences in education in the arts, and she's come close to getting a position abroad, but came up short in the interview process. So do you focus specifically on like corporations? Do you work with people, who are in education or have partners that do?
First of all, hi, Stacy. Nice to see you here. And so I have had clients that are in more, research positions, education. So one of my clients last program, EdM, she got a job with a hospital as a research assistant. So it is possible. It's harder. I think we talked about this the last one in July. It's a bit difficult to go through and business network with people in schools and hospitals. I mean, me personally, I talk to people at universities, and I constantly try to figure out how to integrate with students coming out of school. But on the placement side of things, when we're talking about interacting with academia and reaching out to people and doing LinkedIn cold outreach or doing email, it always is a little bit different because a lot of times those people aren't using business networks, so it's a little bit harder, unless what we would probably do is do some phone calls as well. But it's not impossible, but it's more straightforward, when we're doing all the things that I was mentioning with LinkedIn and with email. When you're going into a public sector or private sector, type company, it's more normalized, let's say. Whereas if it's academia, it's a little bit more confusing for people, and there's not a very high rate sometimes of those people being on LinkedIn. If you're working at a hospital, you don't necessarily need a LinkedIn profile. That's kind of the struggle. Even a school, sometimes if you're working as a teacher, some teachers are not on LinkedIn. Hope that was
That makes
helpful,
plenty of
Stacey.
sense. Yes. I mean, I was a teacher once upon a time, and LinkedIn was not the place, right, where we were doing the things. Okay, another question. Are there resources or groups for Americans that already have dual citizenship, want to make sure I'll be able to land a job before running out of money?
Ooh.
Yeah.
So you have dual citizenship. You can go to the country, you can live there, you can work. Dual citizenship somewhere in Europe or dual citizenship somewhere else? That would be the question, I think.
In Europe.
Oh, in Europe. Yeah. So, I mean, if anytime I talk to someone who has citizenship in Europe, it's a really good sign because you can go live and work in Europe. Like, it's really more free reign. You have a lot more flexibility of what you want to do. I do work with about half of my clients are in Germany already, actually. So it's a struggle, even without the whole idea of visa, that like we talked about. If you've probably seen, getting a job in America right now is really hard too. So there's no questions about visa. There's no questions about passport, no questions about getting deported. So sometimes when I speak with people and they have like a visa problem, then it's a really urgent thing and we need to solve that. But if you have dual citizenship, then you're in a great position. However, if you're running out of money, then that's something that would be the new deadline, basically. So it would be the best that we can do is just try to figure out what's the best strategy to get a job right away. But we don't need to worry about all those other things that with a lot of that other people need to worry about. So like getting sponsorship, you don't need to worry about uh, figuring out like all those things, which type of company, all those different questions. You have more of a local access, and it's more straightforward. Is that generally the direction of answer? Whoever asked that, is that
Um,
a decent answer?
yes, and also, do you know if there are any groups or basically where you could find a community where of people who are dual citizens who are talking about that kind of experience. Do you have any resources for, for people who do have the dual citizenship and are looking to kind of find maybe like a support group or others who have gone through that experience?
I haven't talked to many people in that situation.
Okay.
I know that best friend I would think in this situation is Reddit, because there has to be some sort of Reddit thread for that. And I think people would be really helpful there. I don't, I haven't heard from a lot of people that they have dual citizenship for Europe, and they're really looking for someone to help them out a lot, because usually I hear from people and then they say, but I do have dual citizenship, so I'm probably just going to move there and then figure it out. And then I sort of say, okay, well that's awesome. I wish you the best, and I hope that works out, because it probably will. It'll just take some time, but you already have a way. So I don't know, because I don't interact then in those circles, because usually they wouldn't contact a career consultant really most of the time.
Sure. So a question, I mean, just for myself is, so I would guess, and correct me if I'm wrong, that if somebody has dual citizenship, that's probably a leg up already, over somebody, needing to be sponsored.
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely. It makes it way easier, because you're already approved to work and live in Europe. You have the passport. You can stay there as long as you want, and then you can travel around Europe wherever you please. And you just need to, if you apply with a Swiss passport to a job in Germany and you have European citizenship, it's way less complicated than someone that's coming from outside of the European Union. So that would be a really good thing if you had dual citizenship. Try to get dual citizenship if you can. I always advise people to do that. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to, because way back when my dad was a young guy, he didn't at least he either forgot or he didn't put it on his priority list to get a Swiss passport. So therefore, we skipped one generation, and I can't do it. But that would have really helped if you can get a second passport for sure.
Yeah, I suppose that's a whole separate, that's an entirely different topic. Like, yes, how do we do that? But
If you have,
I don't
I
know
mean,
that
like,
that's your area
if
of
you have
expertise.
great grandparents, some countries they're more lenient than others. I think Italy just stopped it because there were a lot of Americans that were trying to do that, so they put a cap on it. But I think Germany is either grandparents or great grandparents. I need to double check. But if your great grandparent is from Germany, then you can apply for German citizenship.
Yeah, I have a friend who's doing that, so that's interesting. Okay. Yep. Okay, I think that has rounded up I don't see any more questions. So I think you can stop sharing your screen and I will wrap up.
Okay.
But this was so informative. Thank you so much for
Yes.
taking the time. I'm going to drop those links one more time. I
Okay.
have
Yep.
both the blog post and the guide.
Okay.
And I will also make sure to include them in the replay email that I will send out tomorrow. So everybody, you can watch your inbox for that. Let's see. Give me 1 second. There we go.
Yeah.
So watch your
Hopefully.
inbox for that, and I'll include the links. It'll have the replay video, so you can keep that. And I'm just going to run through the last couple of things, tell you what we've got coming up next. So our next events, we've got our November happy hour. I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, we're almost at the end of October. My brain cannot even, like, what even is time? I don't know if it's just me, but that's crazy. So our November happy hour, I believe I'm hosting both events next month. So come join me for happy hour on the 13th. And then we have Candace Kalb coming back to talk to us about mindful travel in Southeast Asia. That's going to be amazing. And then our last final event of the year is we are going to wrap up with a holiday happy hour in December. So we hope that you'll be able to join us for any of these. We'd love to see you there. Upcoming first tours. Well, these are highlights for 2026. We're returning to the Holi Festival in India. That was an amazing experience. So we're doing that again. We've added a new one. We're going to Thailand. And then this time next year, we'll be going to Oaxaca for the Dia de Muertos celebration, which will be, oh my gosh, I want to go on that one. I think that's going to be a really incredible experience. So that's it for this time. Again, Kevin, thank you so much for being here, sharing your knowledge, sharing your information. In the chat, everybody is saying thank you. And yeah, we really, really appreciate all of the information. Don't forget, folks, to go find them on LinkedIn so that you can be connected there. I'm going to send the other resources in the email, and that's it for today. So thank you so much for being here. Thanks again, Kevin. This was really, really informative and wonderful, and we appreciate it.
Yeah, someone thought I was AI, so hopefully if they're still here, I'm a real human. Don't worry.
That's what I said. Like, nope, real human.
And then as far as the guide, what you need to do is you sign up for the guide, and then it sends you in your email. So check your spam if it comes through, because it might go to spam or to your promotions, and there should be the list that comes to you. It takes, you need to be a little patient, 5 minutes. But the thank you page is just saying, hey, it's on your way. You don't need to schedule. No one needs to schedule a meeting if you don't want to. However, if you want to talk one-on-one, then, reach out to me. I'd be happy to talk to you about your situation. But with the list, no need.
Great. Thank you again. This was wonderful. Yeah. And yeah, have a wonderful evening for you and day for the rest of us here. All right, everybody. Bye.
Yep. All right. Thanks again. See ya.